Hello and welcome back to the Spinnin Backfist MMA show. It is Robbie Fox here with Jack Mack and Big Ev. As always, we are here to recap the UFC Fight Night Belal versus Luque 2 card, as well as talk about a little headlines. We're going to have an interview with PFL founder Donn Davis, so stay tuned for that. I think let's kick it off with our thoughts on Luque versus Belal Muhammad itself. This card, not a great card. The main event was not even really a great fight. I'm not the first person to say this. Belal Muhammad seems like a very, very nice guy. Seems like the kind of guy we would get along with. I've interviewed him in the past. Was very nice in that. If he's winning a fight, it ain't a fun fight to watch.
No, the card itself was incredibly boring. It was just a lot of, obviously, the technical decisions, two of them with weird late fouls with both guys that were dominating fights. Just overall, just not good fights. And then the main event, I thought the main event, when we got to it, I was like, all right, like, this is going to be a banger.
Same.
Like, I don't think Luque's ever been in a bad fight ever until this card. Like, it was just, Luque just seemed off. I agree with you. Belal, just like, he used the wrestling decently, but even when he used the wrestling, he didn't really do anything when he was on top. I will say I was impressed with his striking. At least he was able to kind of like choose his spots and was actually like landing pretty, I don't want to say significantly in terms of like harming Luque, but he was legit touching him. Just all around bad card. Probably the worst card of the year, to be totally honest.
Yeah.
What I was most surprised about with Luque, and to go off of Ev's point that he seemed off, there was points where I was just watching the fight and I was just thinking to myself, or just yelling at the screen like, go, go, go. Like,
Yeah.
Like, it was like, why don't he had that? Maybe it's because Belal was going so, like, he was moving the entire fight back and forth, and credit to him, because that takes a lot of cardio, more than just the normal amount to fight 5 rounds. And we know Belal has some of the best cardio in the UFC. But at Luque, it seemed like at points I was just like, go, throw what you know you have in your hands, because it didn't seem like he even, I mean, he had that kind of choke at the end of the 5th round where it was kind of in a little bit, or maybe it was the end of the 4th. But it was just like there was not even a point where I thought Belal, he did get hurt a little bit. What was that, the 3rd round?
The 3rd round, Luque
yeah.
hit him. There was a few times where I was like yelling Luque. I was like, he's hurt. Like,
That's what I was saying. Like, go. But he didn't. And
No.
I mean, I think that must have been because of just, it was hard to get him in the spot that Luque wanted, with Belal going back and forth. He was moving the entire time. His
movement was really good.
Belal's game plan was perfect. Like,
Yeah.
great. Like, he really, like, whether it was him, his team, whoever came up with the game plan, it was a phenomenal game plan to simply just win the fight. And in his point of view, especially like him being like 5'6", like literally probably at this point 1 fight away from a real title shot. Obviously, he's not worried about entertaining the fans. He's trying to win a fight.
And the takedowns
over
are
a tough
very
guy.
impressive.
Really I think that more than anything for Luque was probably what made him gun shy, because he was having like zero resistance to get these takedowns.
Yeah.
Like later on in the fight, Luque stuffed a couple of them, but I mean early on, like he was catching them like just straight, like just level change straight down, like no resistance, had him on his back, middle of the cage. Where Luque would take like 30 seconds a minute, he would get up at least, but. And like I said, Belal kind of wasn't doing like a ton of damage when he was on top, but he was doing enough to win the rounds, to the point where, like in the middle of the 5th round, where I really thought there was a chance when the 5th round started that maybe it could be 2-2 on some cards. I think it was 2-2 on only 1 card.
Yeah,
it was 3-1 on the 2 of the other cards. But I mean, Belal even dominated the 5th round. Like there was to me, there was zero doubt when the 5th round ended.
Agreed.
I was like, Belal won this fight fair and square. I love Luque. I've said he's one of my favorite fighters, if not like my favorite. I was really surprised. The movement definitely was a huge part of it. Like it never seemed like he was able to square him up. Belal just kept going. It was just back and forth. Like he never let him get that. Besides the 3rd round, he never really let him land like a clean shot. And he just had Luque just completely off the entire time. So credit to him. I mean, he's going to get a big fight now. He called out Colby after. I think that's a fight that makes sense, even though I think it would be a total snoozer.
Yeah, he called out Colby, and then he also called out Hamzat. He was like, hey, if that fight isn't happening, which he said in the post-fight thing, he doesn't think it's going to happen. He thinks Colby is going to turn that down, and he'll be able to get one of those.
He did make some fair points about Colby, where like he hasn't, like, obviously he's had 2 like great fights against Kamaru, but he really hasn't like went through these contenders. Like besides Masvidal, he's fought nobody else.
Yeah,
he fought Woodley off like losing a bunch of fights, like
Damian Maia a while ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. Like he should fight like some guys like that, like Hamzat, some like Belal, like somebody in that before this, like a Luque, like somebody that's like considerably in that top 5-6.
Agreed. Which fight would you rather see, Hamzat or Colby, for Belal?
I'd
if
kind
you
of.
had to pick one.
I'd rather see Hamzat Kobe.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'd rather Bilal not be a part of the fight.
Bilal's
at all,
just
to be
like-
honest, but-
I think Colby's just Bilal, but better, in my opinion.
Fair.
And
Similar,
nothing
yeah.
against
Similar
Bilal.
styles, yeah.
Similar styles. I also think Bilal. I mean, when I hear Bilal Colby, it's just like, and I don't even think
Yeah.
Bilal's at Colby's level yet in terms of like selling a fight. Like he's just so boring, and I understand. Like Bilal would be great if he was here. He would probably be a great employee of Barstool Sports in a different universe. But in the UFC world, it's just like no one even in this fight, everyone was looking forward to Luque, not Bilal, and. I was almost thinking of how back in the day where it was like the infamous story about Colby. It was like he was just so boring and they were going to cut him even though he was on a winning streak. Like, what's the difference between Colby back then and Bilal now? It's just, I mean, I know Bilal's beating some better guys, but Bilal's just boring.
Imagine he went full MAGA.
Yeah. Or even like opposite, like full like
Lib.
ACAB. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like I want to take down that MAGA piece of shit. Like that's entertaining. Like give me that more. But
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. He just wants to, and he's done it. He just wants to get to his title, possibly to a fight that gets him to the title shot, and he's almost there. So, and maybe he just doesn't want to do the whole selling fights thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I feel bad as I don't want to like totally trash listen, the fights are boring, but he's doing a great job.
Oh,
Like,
he's brilliant.
He's
Yeah.
been on an incredible run. Like he has beat like his last 3 fights. So he's beaten Luque.
Wonder
He
Boy.
beat Luque, Wonder Boy, and what was the other one? Why am I drawing a blank?
I
He
think
had the Edwards fight before that, didn't he? With
He
the
got
eye poke.
the guy early.
but that wasn't his fault. Yeah.
It's like who's the guy he fought? He
Oh,
beats.
here we go. Damian Maya.
That's who. So he's obviously like older.
And then
but-
Diego Lima, he just
just pieced him up.
and
on the
Lyman
feet.
good. It was all unanimous decisions. It's crazy to Soto
He hasn't
got submitted by him,
hasn't
which
had
is
a
funny.
finish since
'cause it's like-
2019.
Yeah.
Didn't Soto just
When
or
was his
Sato?
last knockout? Like 2016? That was probably ground and pound.
KO? No.
TKO
Oh,
in
Augusto
2016,
Montana.
yeah.
UFC
On the
Fight
Poirier
Night
versus
94.
Johnson card, yeah.
was
Look
second
how
fight in the
weird that
UFC.
sounds.
Parade Johnson.
UFC Fight Night 94. We're at what, like 160 whatever now?
And
Now-
that
now
was
we're
that
just
was
doing
the
the
second
Vegas.
UFC fight, yeah. Interesting.
It's just weird. Yeah, it's tough. It's kind of like a weird thing too, because obviously like, just being that exciting like gets you back to title fight. So he's kind of got like he's winning fights, but it's still just like not. When you don't sell, it's just like not enough. Like
Yeah.
that's why he's still
Not
so I think
producing
there's-
highlight clips.
I think there's a lot of guys in his shoes that if they were exciting, like if they had done what he's done, they'd be fighting for the title.
Definitely.
Because I think what is he? I think 7 or 8 fights in a row
Yeah.
in welterweight. I mean, really,
Seven.
really
Not
impressive.
counting the no contest,
Like very
obviously.
extremely impressive, but it's just a weird. The whole card was just weird.
It was a weird card.
I will say, someone that I was impressed on this card was Lazez.
Yeah.
He was really impressive because I think Lusa's not that bad either. He showed like a decent cardio and enough to eat a lot of Lazez's punches. But he was someone that impressed me. Sabatini did what he had to do. Fiallo, I mean, he's
Fiallo was impressive. I thought
classic Baeza.
because I mentioned last, like he had a really good fight against Pereira, and I mean, like Miguel, like Baeza looked good early, but I mean
he did.
I mean he
Sucked.
just smoked him. Like he hit
For
him
the
with a couple of those
parlay,
uppercuts, and the
obviously, yeah.
one just sent him to the shadow room, and then he jumped on him with a big one.
Started spamming those uppercuts too. It was like boom, boom,
Bang,
boom,
and the
boom,
one
boom.
just sent him. He just was like on
You
a
could
different
see his
planet.
knees kind of buckle and like go out in that moment.
It's such
yeah.
a shame. Like I thought he was gonna be like top. I thought he'd be like top 15 like now.
But it's crazy. Who, Baeza?
yeah, like
Yeah, because, I mean,
the fact that he's
even
on
the
an 0-3
first-
skid is so crazy.
Even
like
at
he
the
was
first
so
4 minutes of the fight, I was like, oh, he looks good. But I
Yeah.
mean, that's classic Baeza. Like, he just gets caught.
Because
then-
even like losing to Chaos Williams, like lost to Ward of Ponzinibbio, who's a really good fighter. I mean, just tough breaks for a young guy, talented guy.
Another card we had this past weekend was the Bellator card. We interviewed Aaron Pico and AJ Mckee ahead of it. Aaron Pico went in like a monster, got a win against a super tough guy. And then AJ Mckee gets his first loss ever against Pitbull. It was a split decision, was it? Or unanimous decision from the judges?
No, I believe it was unanimous. Yeah, it was unanimous.
Very close fight. It was one of those fights where I understand a Pitbull scorecard for sure. Like, I'm not going to argue with that. But it's tough when this is your first loss in MMA, and it could be argued the other side and stuff. You almost want to see the first loss to be a little more controversial.
It was so,
or a little less controversial.
I still love the guy. He lost me a ton of money because he spoke so confidently when we interviewed him. I unloaded the clip on him. I was like, and then it was even worse because then I had a bunch parlayed with Nemkov, which that ended up being void. So then it's like I have all these chips in a minus like 350 basket, which like I didn't want, and just ended up like that. I don't know. It was basically a fight where like if you didn't watch, it just was like basically a high level striking match that just turned into just like a chess match.
Yeah.
And they just didn't hit each other much, and it just was a weird fight. Like I thought McKee won. It was close. I'll never say it was a robbery. It was like close enough that, I mean, I'm not shocked at all that Pitbull got the decision. When it was unanimous, I definitely was like, oh, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know how the judges would go, because I was like, I don't know, maybe they'll be a little favorable. This is kind of like the face of the Bellator now. Like, I don't know. And it just went the other way. And it definitely was weird. I thought it was, like, I was talking to a couple people on Twitter, like, I had tweeted basically saying, like, I kind of what Robbie just said, like, I hate to see a guy, like, lose a belt in that fashion. And people were like, oh, like, fight shouldn't be judged on the curve. Like, if you win the fight, you win. Like, I don't think curve was what I was going for. More just, like, it's tough to see a guy loses zero, loses belt on a kind of, like, a very questionable decision, you could say. Just, like, not decisive decision. So, I don't know. Weird week of MMA all around. Then the Nemkov-Anderson fight. Anderson's winning the fight and then lands like a headbutts him by accident with 3 seconds left in the third round for $1 million, when literally if that had happened 3 seconds into the fourth round, it would have went to the cards. And Anderson he clearly won rounds 2 and 3. So just a weird week of MMA all around.
Something weird was in the water this weekend.
Everything was cursed this weekend. It all was just like not great.
Across the board, yeah. Someone that once threw some illegal strikes and got a loss because of it, Jon Jones. There's rumors that he may come back this summer. And Dana White said Stipe Miocic maybe makes sense for him. That's a fight that absolutely every MMA fan in the world is going to be like, yep, I'm down for that. Give us that fight. I don't think anyone will ever be opposed to that one.
It makes a ton of sense. It almost seems like not the only fight for Jon Jones, but like one of them.
If you do Jon Jones versus Stipe, and then you do like, what was the Tai Tuivasa rumor?
Now it could be Tai. It was Tai. Stipe was the rumor, but now you could do like a Tai, like Aspinall.
If you wanted to do that fight, you could almost make like a little heavyweight tournament while Francis is out. That would be pretty awesome.
I think that sounds great. I thought it was going to be like almost the other way, but no, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Fans perspective. I mean, like I said, I'm super high in Aspinall. I think Aspinall is the real deal, but I mean, Jon Jones is. I'll never count him out until we at least see him at heavyweight.
No. Even after the latest video where he's smashing his face into the hood of a cop car.
It's crazy. That was only that was in September.
Yeah. It was crazy.
Fucking wild.
Crazy video. And another potential matchup that has just been put out into the Twitter sphere, Jake Paul versus Michael Bisping. A lot of questions about this one. Can Bisping get commission? Can he get approved by a commission? Because he does have a glass eye. He has a fake eye. And throughout his fighting career, I know that was like an issue. He couldn't get it fixed to get the glass eye in there because then he wouldn't get approved. So, like, I don't know how many obstacles, hurdles are in the way. If they could make this, I do think it would be Jake Paul's toughest striking test to date. We said that with Woodley. I believe it was true with Woodley at the time, and still now. And from just the perspective of the fight build, it would be the best Jake Paul build out there. I mean, even better than Ben Askren, which is pretty good.
Or at least for Jake, going up in striking level, fighting someone that's actually his size.
Yep.
Bisping will talk shit back, and maybe even better.
Yep.
Because Jake Paul was stuttering like Bisping's pretty quick on the mic. He's pretty witty on the mic. So I would like to see it for the build up. I agree with you that maybe Florida.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it's gonna, the glass eye is tough.
Can they go on international waters? I know Logan trains out of Puerto Rico. Can they get like a boat and just put it in between?
For tax reasons.
Yeah. But like maybe they have like some kind of lax commission on the waters.
Do like a pay-per-view overseas.
Yeah.
That would be wild. I don't know. Because it's a fight that I think that Jake Paul could definitely lose. Like I think in these past fights, he could have lost the first Woodley fight. I mean, he kind of almost got knocked out, sort of, but.
It's a fight that I also, with all due respect to Michael Bisping, think that he could win.
That Bisping could win? Or Jake Paul
No, that Jake Paul could win. I could see Jake Paul losing. I could see Bisping just like kind of beating the shit out of him. I could also see Jake Paul landing one of those huge punches. I can't believe I'm saying this, but we've seen Bisping get dropped, knocked out before.
Gastelum knockout was bad.
He's only gotten older. Time has only gotten passed since then, so he's probably gotten slower. And Jake Paul does have that power. I don't like the guy, but he's got the power to put anyone out.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like Bisping's definitely would be the best opponent for sure. Like that, probably that's like
It'd
makes
be a
sense
real
even
legit
right
win,
now.
even years after retirement.
It's Jake Paul is like I just find it fascinating. I've kind of been known as like a Jake Paul guy, and more just honestly, now I almost feel indebted to him because I've like believed in him. He's made me like a ton of money now betting wise. But I don't know. I think I just appreciate more that I think people are overlooking because they think he's such an asshole that like anybody could just box for like 4 years and like put Tyron Woodley to sleep.
Yeah, no.
Like pretty impressive. Like if you just take like the names out of it, the shenanigans, the antics, like the guy started boxing 4 years ago. He knocked Tyron Woodley out on cold, flatline.
Brutally, yeah.
On his
Worse
face.
than he's
face
ever
ass
been,
up in the air. Like very impressive. He's got real knockout power. But Bisping would be like a real test. Because I think we talked about before, like Anderson Silva would like make sense because obviously he's no contract. But I think Jake Paul's smart enough that he knows that's a bad idea.
I think so too. Especially after seeing Silva box.
Silva's so skilled. Even older now, he's still just incredibly skilled. He's still got big time power. Like he smoked Tito Ortiz.
Yeah.
Smoked him.
And Julio Cesar Chavez.
Yeah.
Yep.
Both of them in the ring.
He's still, Anderson Silva's the real deal. I don't think he wants that at really any time.
That would be awesome, though. And maybe if he beats Bisping, maybe Anderson could be the next step. You know, he works his way up little by little.
I feel like he's just too quick. Even being 45, he's just so fast
and unpredictable too. He still has that weird striking, that weird movement that maybe Bisping could be a little more predictable in.
Yeah.
Maybe get the Tommy Fury fight. I'm sure at some point. For me, this thing about Jake Paul, I think just Tommy Fury's awful. I think he'd
I was going to say the Tommy Fury thing. Like, at what point does that become the Dylan Dennis thing? Anybody who past that?
Anybody who thinks Tommy Fury will win, I beg you, go back to the first Jake Paul Woodley fight and watch Tommy Fury fight on the undercard and tell me that he would beat Jake Paul. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
I'll say watch that fight and then I'm telling you, watch that fight. He was mediocre at best versus like a 7-5 regional MMA fighter who was 5'7".
Yeah, that's bad.
I'm telling you, like I watch that fight and tell me Tommy Fury could beat Jake Paul. He would get crushed by Jake Paul.
That would almost be worth it just for the buildup of his dad talking shit at Jake throughout the entire hype.
His brother.
Or no, his dad. The Fury's dad is just
is his
crazy
dad?
man.
Do they talk shit like that?
I think so, yeah.
I didn't know his dad. I thought you just spoke that
Jon
Tyson
Fury.
Fury was.
He's out of his mind.
Yeah.
Jon Fury's out of it.
Just a crazy.
He said that if Fury or Tommy lost to Jake Paul, he would like disown him. He would say,
I think he will absolutely lose.
He's got the exact voice that Tyson does too. Him and Tyson talk.
He got into a fight with somebody at a press conference. I forget. No, I think he was yelling at Jake Paul, and Jake Paul was just, Jake Paul was over Zoom, and Jake Paul just kept saying like, "You're like an old like piece of shit," like, and he made fun of like how he's had a bunch of marriages, stuff like that. So Tommy and Jake Paul, who are Tommy and Tyson, who by the way is fighting this weekend.
Oh, there's that this
Dylan
weekend,
White.
this Saturday?
Yeah, or is it next weekend?
Maybe next weekend.
I think it's next weekend, actually, the 29th.
Yeah, next weekend.
He's fighting Dylan White in Wembley.
Yeah.
That'll be cool. But his father.
I mean, I think he makes light work of him.
April 23rd.
April 20. Oh, so this weekend.
This weekend, yeah.
That'll be good. I'm sure there's some guys on there. I know we're not really a boxing, but I'm sure there'll be some guys on that. I know.
I got to become a boxing guy. Calling a Canelo fight.
Oh yeah, I forgot about
crazy.
that, which is crazy. I mean, Canelo's just like, when I heard that happen, like, I don't think people here get it. He's one of the most famous athletes in the world.
Yeah.
Because I think fighting, it crosses. That's why I think when we were talking
language
to
everyone can speak.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It crosses borders, and we were talking with the PFL founder, and he was saying how it's the third most popular sport in the world behind basketball and soccer, which makes a lot of sense because it's just like baseball gets lost in translation, American football gets lost in translation. But boxing, I mean, everyone knows who Canelo Alvarez is.
I mean, what's Kamaru and Khabib's manager? Ali.
Ali
Abdelaziz.
Abdelaziz.
He went on Mike Tyson's podcast and he made like a real take that really made me think for a while. And I honestly I think it's true that I think if you take without the shoes, like Mike Tyson is more famous than Michael Jordan. Like I'm saying worldwide, not America.
Maybe,
he's from Egypt, and his point was like if you go to Africa, like they know Mike Tyson. Like obviously, like now, like everyone knows Jordan too.
Yeah.
But he was kind of saying like, and like when like he was in his prime, like before the shoes had blown up, when like they kind of were in their primes at like similar-ish times.
Yep.
Tyson was there a little, and actually
Tyson's a little
pretty much
earlier,
the same
probably,
time.
right?
Jordan started winning a little bit after Tyson did. But if you like, he was pretty firm, and he kind of made me like think about it and believe it that like Tyson at that point was more famous, and without the shoes, that he still probably would be. The shoes are just so global now; it's like not even comparable. But I mean, like boxers are like some of the most famous people. Like Canelo for sure is one of the most famous athletes like globally.
Yeah,
100%.
And it's a good transition talking about Mike Tyson because we talked about Mike Tyson with PFL founder Donn Davis. So we can throw to that interview now. I thought it was a good interview, very interesting interview.
It was really good.
The PFL season begins this Wednesday, which we'll talk about on ESPN, ESPN Plus. I'm sure throughout the season, throughout the playoffs, we'll probably mention some of these fights.
Yep.
Maybe
Jeremy
talk to some
Stevens.
of these fighters. Jeremy
He's
Stevens
headlining
on
the
this
one this
card.
week.
Yeah. So there's some names that you're going to know throughout all these cards. And I thought this was a really good interview, so we'll throw over to it now. This is Donn Davis from the PFL. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. We are now here with the PFL founder, Donn Davis. Donn, talk to us about PFL's 2022 season. It begins this week on ESPN, ESPN Plus. Jeremy Stevens at the first card, PFL 1, the Canadian Gangsters on that card. We've got Lance Palmer, a returning champion, at PFL 2, Kayla Harris and Anthony Pettis at PFL 3. Rory McDonald is even on that card. Talk to us about the upcoming season, why we should be excited to kick things off.
Yeah, you guys have followed the PFL. You know what makes it different from UFC. It's a sports season format. Win in advance, lose and go home. March Madness meets MMA. You win 4 times, you're the 2022 champ. So in the UFC, a promoter, Dana White, decides who's going to fight, who's going to become champ. In the PFL, we decide nothing. The fighter decides everything. The champion is decided in the cage. No PR, no politics, no social media BS. Best fighter wins. Last year, Roush Manfino, 1,000 to 1 in the DraftKings Sportsbook to start the year, ends up as champion. So this year, we got superstar stories, as you mentioned, Kayla Harrison. Amanda Nunes, Cyborg, Kayla Harrison, top 3 women in the world. We got redemption stories. UFC champ, Pettis, Bellator champ, Rory McDonald, both got their butts kicked last year. Will they redeem themselves? We got returning champs. Ray Cooper III, one of the toughest in the world. Will he repeat? So we've got underdogs, champions, superstars, redemption. That's what I love about the PFL. All the stories, just like in the NBA or the NFL, are there.
How did you get involved with the PFL in the first place? How did this connection evolve, basically? And why? Like, were you a fight fan growing up your whole life? Were you a new fight fan? How did this come about?
Yeah, like most people out there, I'm a huge sports fan, but I was not an MMA fan. So I started the PFL the day UFC sold. And I saw 3 things that day. 600 million MMA fans around the world, the 3rd biggest fan base after soccer and basketball. But that fan base, very underserved. UFC puts on 30 events a year, and they're great at it. But there's 6,000 basketball games a year, 3,200 soccer matches a year, and only 30 UFC events. All other MMA was, call it single A baseball. Very inferior. So I saw new opportunity to bring a sports season format, a different take to MMA, to that underserved fan base, and also to make it very technology savvy, bring a fresher, more modern product. As you know, we have the Smart Cage, measures data, measures fighter analytics. We use twice as many cameras, including a ghost cam that makes a camera disappear, a ref cam that gives you a knockout version. So we said, what if we bring that underserved fan base, a great product, a differentiated product, a more modern tech-savvy product? And I started it that day. And 4 years later, we're the number 2 MMA company in the world by every key metric, and fans are really enjoying it.
Have you found any kickback from fighters? Obviously, this is a new format when it comes to MMA. Has there any been, when you've been talking, trying to sell them on the PFL, saying, well, I don't really like this season format?
Hey, I got to be dead candid. It's the exact opposite.
Interesting.
One, we've never lost a fighter. not one, to UFC or Bellator. And we've recruited 50% of the free agents that have come on the market to the PFL. Think about it. What does every athlete want, whether they're the NBA or whether they're an MMA fighter? Number one, they want to fight on the biggest stage. The PFL is on ESPN, main channel, prime time in the US, and we're in 160 countries with a top 3 media partner in every one of those countries. Same distribution as UFC. In fact, many UFC events are pay-per-view, so we have the broadest distribution. Athletes want number 2, to make the most money. We pay the same as UFC for every fight, but if you're the champion, you make a bonus $1 million. That's life-changing money in MMA. And number 3, every athlete wants a clear path to become champion. There are top 5 fighters in the UFC, can't tell you what it takes to get a title fight. Just do a little Google search and you'll see a little grumpiness on that. So here, as I said, no politics, no BS, no counting social media followers. It's called, you win 4 times, you're the champ, no matter what. And so you bet on yourself. It's a fighter first, fighter driven league in the PFL. So it's been the exact opposite. Fighters have been moving to PFL each and every year.
I actually believe that because I talked to Kayla Harris, and this is when she was still signed with the PFL right before her last fight with the PFL, and we didn't know where she would go next. We didn't know when she was becoming a free agent if she would go to the UFC or what. And I said, Kayla, if promotions, if money were not an option, not an issue, and you just got to decide the season format or the UFC kind of fight when you want to fight format, what would you pick? And she said the season format. She was like, I've really grown to like this. And obviously growing up through the Olympic system, having the tournament style, that is something she likes. But I think it's pretty similar across the board.
Well, look, we all loved Blockbuster until there was Netflix. We all thought that was the best system in the world because you could get your rental tapes anywhere. And then pretty soon there was Netflix. So UFC is the best system that existed in version 1.0 of MMA. They've been around 30 years. We've only been around 3. So we recognize our brand is just starting. Our credibility is now very strong. But each and every year, we've got to prove it and grow, not only to the fans and to the fighters. And we've earned a lot so far, but we've got more to prove. And as we do that, we believe we can become a co-leader in MMA.
Honestly, very impressive what you've done in a short period of time. I was curious, obviously the season start. Do you have, obviously I know like you win, obviously you move on for the next guys. Early in the season, like say like the initial matchups, do you have any matchmakers for stuff like that, or how do those like initial fights get selected? Just curious.
Hey, that's a great question. So you guys know Ray Sefo, Sugar Ray, 6-time world champion in the Hall of Fame. So Ray does our initial matchups, and there we only have 2 guiding principles. 1, fairness, and 2, what would be a fantastic fight for fans. So those are how we do the regular season matchups, and Ray handles those for us.
Awesome, love that. No, I was just curious because I do believe there's no politics in it. The tournament system is as fair as it gets. I was just curious how kind of but it makes a lot of sense.
How did
and remember, the fighters have additional control in the PFL because in our point system, remember you get 3 points to win, and then you get bonus points for a finish. If you knock somebody out in the first round, you get an additional 3 points. The second round, 2 points. Third round, 1 point. So if you win in the first round, you get 6 points. 3 points for the finish, 3 points for the knockout. So fighters really like that they even have more control over whether they advance because they don't have to just tie out a fight to get the decision. Fans like it because 2/3 of our fights end in finishes. So really, really high action. So that's another innovation that we brought to the sport that I think makes it more exciting, but also more fighter driven. Don't let the judges decide what's happening here. As Ray Sefo says, take care of your own business.
Yeah, over the past couple of years, we've also seen Mike Tyson involved with the league, and there's kind of a partnership there. How did that start?
So look, as you guys said, was I an MMA fan growing up? No, I was a boxing fan. And obviously loved Mike Tyson, not only what he did in the ring, but the responsibility he took for his own actions outside the ring. And I called Mike, and I've had several dinners with Mike, and I said, you were one of the few that could have empowered all fighters to be able to be on their own without a promoter and to be able to control their own destiny. That's what I am trying to do in MMA, empower fighters to control their own destiny. And he said, I believe in that mission. I said, let's get involved with this league. And so he has been particularly helpful to young fighters in two areas in the PFL. One, marketing. Mike says there are a lot of great fighters, but how do they market themselves? Number two, wisdom. Mike is unbelievably wise. And how do you get your head right outside the cage to be all you can be? And boy, I'm surprised. Mike has come to 3 of our events. He handed out the championship belts 2 years ago at our events. How the fighters revere Mike, many who never even saw him fight live, is amazing and inspiring.
No, of course, he's a legend. And, like, what is it like just getting to sit down and kind of talk fighting with Mike Tyson? Is it amazing?
You know, I talk more life with Mike than fighting. And as I said, his instincts around business and his instincts around marketing are sharper than anybody would imagine. I've enjoyed it. But we have a bunch of influencers involved around PFL. Wiz Khalifa, Ray Lewis, Kevin Hart. They've all been enjoyable because what you see is these great athletes and great entertainers. They became great and they became superstars for a reason. And it's normally beyond their skill. It's something else of the it factor. And we've learned from all of them and tried to incorporate some insights or some expertise from all of them into our product. And I think that's why people really resounded to what has been a very innovative, very modern take on MMA. And when you turn on ESPN this Wednesday, people will see, call it version 4.0 of the PFL product. And they will see something more fresh, more innovative, more exciting than I think you see on any product in any sports league, period.
Are there any big changes that you can kind of give us the scoop on before Wednesday, or do you want us to be a little bit more surprised?
Nah, look, the thing I love most is our computerized scoring, our artificial intelligence scoring. We call it fighter performance rating. For all of you who are NFL fans, as I am, you know, there's the QBR, which is how we score quarterbacks. It's not just yards and passes and touchdowns. It's the perfect scoring of quarterbacks. Well, we actually reviewed 1,000 fights and came up with the perfect scoring system of every round. If I knock you out in a round, it's 100, right? That's the perfect score. If it's a 91-87, that's probably a 10-9 round and how the judge should score it. So we post after every round and at the end of the fight, how that fight should be scored. It is a perfect computerized scoring of that fight. When we're all watching, what do we all say? We debate with our friends. Who won that round? Nah, the judges aren't right. It should have gone that way. Well, with the PFL fighter performance rating, you now actually know what happened. We display it after every round on screen and after each fight. So to me, I love that because this is transparency. And what the PFL is all about is meritocracy and transparency. So you'll see that every fight, every round, every event this year.
But then there are still actual judges, correct? Or is that different this season?
So remember, you still got all the judging there, but you'll see judges next to fan vote, next to computerized scoring. So you'll see 3 different ways of how each round went down and how each fight went down.
You know, I've watched the last few seasons. I did notice that. I do like that. I think it's a great feature. Do you think you guys' league would ever be open to open scoring? Because I know that's been something that's been debated a lot kind of in the MMA world over the last few years.
Yeah, look, I think open scoring has a ton of advantages. You know, a lot of this stuff is commission driven. What we could do with computerized scoring is really trying to push the sport and the commissions in a certain direction of transparency. And, you know, but I think over time, that's a commission driven thing.
Open scoring would, you were, at least the downside of open scoring, at least from a promotion perspective, at least in my opinion, would be the finishes may drop off. A guy who's in the 3rd round who thinks it's 1-1, but then on the open scoring, or even if he thinks he's down, but he's up 2-0, he may be a little bit more safe. And I know you talked about earlier in the interview that you do like how PFL has that 66% finish rate. And so there may be some downsides to it.
Well, I think in the PFL, you wouldn't have that given the finish rate in terms of the regular season carries bonus points, but in the playoffs that would be it. But I think anything for transparency is good for fans and good for fighters. And as you guys have seen, we're even open for cross-promoting fights. I come from, call it the consumer disruptive company world, right? Where earlier in my career built DraftKings, Sport Radar, Team Liquid. Everybody wins when the consumers, viewers, and fans win, right? That tends to be the biggest company, the most valuable company. So I tend to focus on the fans and the viewers first. If you serve them, everybody wins. And so to me, that's our North Star at PFL. What's good for the athletes and what's good for the fans is what we do. And that'll be continued to what we do.
We kind of spoke earlier in the interview about Kayla Harris and that period where she went into free agency. How important was it to you to re-sign Kayla? Obviously, one of the faces of PFL, if not the face.
Look, it was very important. I love Kayla as a person. We love Kayla as a fighter. We discovered her out of the Olympics. We developed her in MMA. We do not view ourselves as a feeder league. In fact, our roster has 30% ranked in the top 25 in the world. That's the exact same percentage as UFC. They have 30% ranked in the top 25 in the world. Now, remember, PFL doesn't have a pay-per-view division yet. So we don't have a Conor McGregor. We don't have a Jon Jones. We don't have an Usman yet. But they all fight on pay-per-view. We don't have that division yet. But on TV, on ESPN, we have the exact same quality cards. So we want to keep all of our best fighters, whether it's Ray Cooper III, who is not at Kayla's level yet, but give him another year. Give him another 2 years. He might be there yet. So absolutely, we want to do everything we can to keep our stars. And we did it by listening to Kayla. We asked her what was important to her. And there were things that weren't just money. And we gave those to her. And we'll do that for every one of our fighters that we possibly can.
Do you consider her the most important signing in PFL history?
Absolutely. I think there are two things. One, everybody wanted her. UFC wanted her. Bellator wanted her. And she was recruited at the highest level of Scott Coker and Dana White. And both those companies have unlimited money. So for us to be able to have the PFL be the place that Kayla wanted to be, obviously important. She's probably the most sought after free agent in MMA history. There'll be more. 6 of the top 12 pay-per-view free agents, pay-per-view fighters in UFC are free agents in the next 24 months. They've never had an option before, but PFL is now an option for them once we launch our pay-per-view division. So you'll see many more high-profile free agents and many more competitions for them in the next 24 months that you've never seen before. But Kayla was the first, and it was clearly the most important signing for us.
Over the next 20, obviously you said you're open to the cross promotion. I feel like that's been something that the UFC's kind of been vocal that they're not into. What would you say the chance over the next, say, like 24 months that a fight between like a Kayla Harris and like a Cyborg could like potentially get done?
Look, I'm optimistic it'll happen. Number one, Kayla wants it. Number two, I think Chris Cyborg will want it. It's her only chance to be a 5-belt winner. No one in the history, man or woman, has ever been a 5-belt winner. PFL would be her 5th belt if we put that on the line. The fans want it. PFL has said that we will do it, whether it's on Pluto or Earth or whether it's on their network or our network. So there's only one obstacle, Bellator. Well, why would they object? Right? We're creative. We're can-do people, right? So to me, Bellator is the only obstacle to that. So I think it'll happen.
It seemed like they've said they're open to stuff like that. That's why I asked.
That's what I'm saying. So I think it'll happen, and I think it'll happen in the first half of 2023.
Wow, that'd be amazing.
That'd be awesome.
For fans. Yeah, that's like a super fight for Kayla for sure.
Yeah, and look, I think it'll be the biggest women's pay-per-view MMA fight in maybe 4 to 5 years. And look, Amanda's fantastic, but who knows when she'll next fight, and she is a smaller fighter. I think between Chris and Kayla, those are clearly the two most exciting, most powerful female fighters of this current generation. And I want to see it. Fans want to see it. So let's make that happen. And let's be creative. And there won't be any barriers from our side to make that happen.
Wow, that sounds amazing for us, too. We want to see it as well. All right, Donn, thank you for the time. We really appreciate it. Obviously, PFL 1 this Wednesday, ESPN, the entire PFL season beginning now, 2022 season. Then you got the playoffs, the championships. It's going to be good.
Yeah, I would just tell people that all the events this year are simulcast. You can see them either on ESPN main channel or ESPN Plus. So all season long, either place, ESPN main or ESPN Plus.
Can we get like the cursing on ESPN Plus? Is that allowed on ESPN Plus?
Both.
Oh, nice.
There we go.
All right, cool.
Unlimited cursing.
All right, Don. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.